At first, I didn't like this game, but then I started loving it. So, how'd this happen? Let's start from the beginning. Castlevania Circle of the Moon is a metroidvania developed by Konami. What's a metroidvania? It's Metroid plus Castlevania. Sprinkle in a bit of the RPG system, and bam. The first metroidvania was Symphony of the Night on the PlayStation 1, a game that will be forever hailed as a classic among classics. The Castlevania series was always a platformer, but ever since the money came rolling in, they adapted. Konami got cooking with a launch title for the GBA, which brings us to here. Now that we got that out of the way, let's begin. Welcome to 1800s Europe. The evil Dracula is about to be resurrected once again to wreak havoc upon this miserable world. We're joined by veteran vampire hunter Morris Baldwin, who is in fact bald, along with his son Hugh Baldwin, who is not bald, and Nathan Graves, our protagonist. The wicked Camilla uses console commands to bring back the vampire lord, and so just as the group arrives, they find that they were too late. Before the game stops us from taking on the final boss too early, he sends both Nathan and Hugh down to the noob level. While our protagonist insists on working together, Sasuke is less inclined to agree and runs off. And so, we officially start the game in the catacombs. Now that I've managed to get your attention past 30 seconds, let's talk about controls. You'll find the game's controls to be wicked smooth. It's easy to make your jump, but movement does start off at a molasses pace. You can also do a Mega Man slide, though that's not really that much. Jump and whip. Easy. Nothing can ruin how great it feels to move. Oh, that's NES knockback in my Metroidvania. You can also acquire sub-weapons much like the NES classics, which cost hearts to use. Some are bad, but some are definite picks like the boomerang. The first section of the game is to teach you the basics. There's the creatures to fight like skeletons and zombies. Beating them will grant you XP, which you'll need to level up. As you level up, your stats will increase so you can take on and deal more damage. Nothing too challenging, just avoid the bombs from the skeletons and whip the poison worms from the ceiling. Use your whip dangly thingy and get rid of the worms on the ground. As for those boneheads, their projectiles are both slow and predictable, so it's nothing worth the trouble. Sure, it was just about to start the game, but I was feeling good about my chances. It wouldn't be long enough before I got myself a reality check. This is an Earth Demon. At this early stage in the game, it can kick your ass if you don't get it good. They like to spam their rock wave attack, which can deal tons of damage at your current level. If you time it just right, you can deal with it just fine. Alright, before I forget, try to find the first save room before you do this. Because, yeah, I had to do the entire run through all over again. Yeah, I wasn't liking this game to start, but I had to keep pressing on. Save rooms are your lifeline in this game. It heals you back to full and lets you save the game. They aren't too common, so don't get crazy. We make it all the way to the right to acquire the dash boots. I just unlocked Minecraft sprinting as an ability. This is but one of several items you unlock that grant you a new permanent ability and is needed to progress through the game. Speaking of abilities, there's one more system I almost forgot to mention, the Dual Setup System, or DSS for short. In Circle of the Moon, you have a magic system in the form of selecting two types of cards, Roman gods and creatures. By selecting one card of each, you can press the DSS button to unleash an effect which costs MP. Some effects will continuously consume MP, while others are a flat reduction. At the moment, I have the ability to make my whip on fire. It sounds cool, yeah, but there's just one little thing I'm not a big fan of. Their RNG. By that, I mean getting the cards is a matter of RNG. Certain creatures are able to drop these cards, and those have a rare drop rate. I didn't even figure this out until I looked it up halfway into my playthrough. Needless to say, I felt pretty dumb. You can mitigate this somewhat by increasing your luck stat with items. You know, I do get locking these behind progression, but I do wish it wasn't through the equivalent of an MMO drop chart. I'm getting off topic though. Scattered in this game are permanent upgrades to our health, MP, and maximum heart count. Try and find them when you can. Some are also hidden through breakable walls, while others will require certain power-ups. And now, it's finally time to take on the first boss. This is the Cerberus. For a first boss, he's actually a bit of a challenge. His lightning orbs aren't too bad. The lunges, however, can get you if you aren't quick enough, but that beam attack needs you to be fast enough to run past its head to dodge. As a pro gamer, I definitely didn't die to this thing. Nope. We beat it and acquired the ability to double jump. Remember when I said that moving in this game was wicked smooth? Now it's even better. It's time for us to enter the Abyss Stairway. Here in Castlevania, everyone chooses to jump for the hearts. As we make our way up, we need to make sure nothing gets the drop on us. With my parkour skills, this shouldn't be a problem at all. Just hang in there until you reach the save room. These axe armors aren't too bad to deal with after all. You can whip the axes as they throw, but these electric skeletons can just bugger right off. Chalking the floor is a real pain. But hey, it's not all too bad. Though this place can be a bit confusing. Surely there has to be a map function somewhere, right? There's no map function. My Metroidvania has no map function. This is fine. This is totally fine. You know what? That's fine, because I'm about to take on the second boss, and if it's anything like the first, I'm good. Meet the Necromancer. He likes to throw magical orbs and spawn in zombies. I hated dodging those orbs. It's like I couldn't even gauge the timing. This was my reality check. I needed to learn the patterns downright pat. Just as I thought I did.
Gotcha, bitch!
I don't like this game very much. His second form will now start spawning in skeletons and ricochet across the room as an energy ball. As you can imagine, it took a few more tries. This was only boss number 2. How much harder was it going to get? For now, we obtained the ability to tackle, which lets us break certain stone blocks. This ability is trash, but we need to progress to the game. Before I proceed any further, I want to give some attention to the game's soundtrack. The gothic style is done exceptionally well here. Even the introduction gives you that eerie feeling. With the darker set pieces of the game, it does help ease you into the setting. Speaking of, consider the fact that this was released on the GBA, not the SP. Imagine how dark this must have looked without backlight. Now that's horror. Back to where we were. We do a bit of exploration, perform our well-timed jumps, get past the skeleton bombers, pick up a few upgrades, and now I'm off to the machine tower. My parkour skills are finally put to the test here. To make it through here, I'll need to not only jump through moving platforms, but also avoid getting hit by Medusa heads, box archers, and heat shades. After spending most of my time on the horizontal, it was time to focus on the vertical. I carefully planned my jumps to make it to the top. You'll also see some upgraded variations of older enemies, just as we... Oh no. Just kidding, we can easily take care of the Thunder Demon. On our way, we head through the blue door and take on boss number 3. We easily ditch past the boss with a combination of holy water and whiplashes. The Iron Golem is a much easier boss compared to the Necromancer, which is a big disappointment. Avoid the falling debris, watch out for its throw, and GG. I totally first tried it. Just as we relish in our victory, Hugh shows up and calls us out for getting in his way. Once he dishes us, we can acquire our next upgrade. The Kick Boots lets us perform Mega Man X wall jumps, and with it, we start making our way to the next area. Let me tell you something, not having a map feature is really starting to wear me out. I have to memorize every corridor if I'm playing this blind. At least I get the grind along the way. But I got so lost that it took me over 40 minutes to finally make it to the chapel tower. If you've been doing this like I have, the enemies start to jump up in difficulty here. But even so, I had 3 bosses under my belt. I've been getting stronger in adjusting to the enemy's attack patterns, though my tune quickly started to change again. It all started with these floating blades. They were quick on the attack and their small hitbox didn't help. I thought things couldn't get worse, but they did. Meet the Marionette, a new enemy that inflicts curse on hit. When you get hit with curse, you aren't able to attack. It'll wear off, but I was also still being pelted by the blades. A curse potion can take care of it, but you're gonna have to grind for it. The only thing you can do is to slide and tackle. If you don't care for these enemies, they're gonna keep following you, so there's just about 2 options. Take care of them one at a time, or just gun it. And you can see what option I took. I ran as fast as I could and booked it. Heading through 2 more sections, I eventually made it towards the save room. At that point, I had a feeling the boss room was close, and I was right. Given my track record, I'm sure I can get this in a few deaths. Before that, Hugh gets sidelined out of the boss door. Despite Nathan's best attempts to help, he rejects it. With him being injured, it was up to us to take care of whatever's inside. Meet Adrammelech. Unlike the other bosses, he's completely stationary, but as you can see, he proves to be quite the challenge. Dark bubbles constantly spawn around the head, which is his weak point. They're easy to get rid of, but then he has 2 more attacks on top of that. And depending what side you're on, he'll spawn in a barrage of skeleton heads, which you'll need to quickly slide and duck. And after that, he'll throw in a barrage of flames. As you can see, this would have been a great time to have the boomerang. Unfortunately, I had to learn that the hard way. After several tries, I decided to use the axe and go with that instead. Turns out, that did just the trick. With that, boss number 4 was over and done with. Our reward this time isn't a new item, but just an MP increase. Not just that, but we also pressed the switch contained in the room. Afterwards, Hugh starts spewing some pure copium about the fact that we're just being carried by our whip, the vampire killer. Bruh. Then he just dips. The audacity. Me personally, I wouldn't take that. Well, at this point, I had no idea where I was supposed to go next. Well, actually, no, I did. That switch we pressed broke all the green coffins in the game. This meant that we need to head to those areas. It was here that I got really tired of discovering the game blind, so I went in and got myself a complete map of the castle. With this, I knew where I had to go next. I have nothing against playing a game completely blind, believe me. In fact, that's usually how you want to enjoy any game. But I was playing a Game Boy Advance game. Even during this time, it was common to purchase strategy guides to know what to do next, and I doubt most kids knew what a GameFAQs was. These games were meant to increase playtime with such methods. After all, the length of a Game Boy Advance game isn't comparable to a DS one. And immediately did my life just get 10 times better. Having a map makes the gameplay experience so much better. I had no idea why this game didn't come with one. Still, I had my next destination in mind. I instantly regret coming here. The underground waterway's water is red, therefore it's toxic. Just staying in there depletes your health. After running into some ice armors, I knew it was my best interest to leave. So with that in mind, I rushed straight for the underground gallery. Unlike with the chapel tower, this area is much more claustrophobic in design. Narrow hallways, limited jumping space, and large enemies taking up said hallways. Most of the enemies like death mantises and man-eaters are fairly straightforward. Poison armors definitely provide a bit of challenge since you have to actively avoid their toxic mist. But the specters. I'm just trying to parkour, but they keep ruining my day every single time. They aren't even hard to kill. I can just one-tap them. All I want to do is jump, but they won't let me. Now that I got through all that, it was time to take on the boss. I'm now 4 for 4. We got this. We don't got this. Instead of one boss, I'm facing two at once. The twin dragon zombies is, ironically, one of the hardest bosses in this game. I wasn't prepared for what I had to deal with. Their head was the weak spot, but the opposite will always launch an attack when I do. On top of that, both heads are constantly on the move. I attempted the strategy where I focus on one head at a time in the left and right corners. In the end, I still lost. This was it. I was all washed up. Attempt after attempt, I still was nowhere even close to getting rid of one dragon. It's over. Dracula wins. Unless I lock in. I've done it. After leveling up, acquiring more DSS cards, and gaining more equipment, the Twin Dragons were now just a distant memory. It felt great to have dogpiled on the boss after all the work I put in. This alone helps cement how fun the core gameplay can be if you just put in a bit of work into it. With a plethora of new abilities, my options only increased. This, alongside the boomerang, was when I shifted my opinion on this game. I was now liking Circle of the Moon, and with that euphoric victory, I obtained the ability to move heavy crates. It's nothing flashy, but it's progression. I'm now halfway into the game and my opinions have shifted. It presents a question though. Is the game bad because it took a while for me to get into it? In this case, no, it doesn't. In fact, I think Circle of the Moon was always a quality title regardless of how long it took for it to click. Not every game resonates with a player right off the bat. Whether it's because they're designed differently or something else, sometimes a game will either win you over or it doesn't. That's just how it is. When I made this channel last year, my goal was to show people ways I enjoy certain games. Even now, that goal remains the same. The beginning of this game can be a bit rough on first-time players. But the game is designed to teach players how to traverse and deal with the enemies at hand. As long as you display a bit of patience, the fun will start opening up to you. My next destination was actually an optional dungeon known as the Underground Warehouse. The area is mostly filled with block puzzles, so you have to solve it to get through. They aren't too hard to solve, but you can always exit and come back to reset. Of course, the reason I came here was to take on the optional boss, Death. Defeating him will earn you a special amulet that'll turn all the red water in the waterway into safe fresh water, making it 10 times easier to traverse through. Of course, to acquire it, I need to kill Death itself. So yeah, turns out having the boomerang just shreds the boss in half. I love this game. His second form is even easier thanks to him being on the ground. The Jupiter/Serpent DSS combination completely invalidates his flying sickle spam, allowing you free reign to go ham. With the optional boss done, we're now off to the waterway proper. Before that, I took a good moment to grind off of Flinlum that spawns in one of the secret rooms at the machine tower. My goal was to acquire dark armor, which is really valuable in this game, but I gave up and moved on. Now that we replaced all the Flint and Michigan water, we're free to actually traverse the area without harm. There's nothing much special to point out here aside from needing to pull a few levers to manipulate these stacks of blocks. At this point, I'm more than well enough equipped to handle the assortment of ice armors, frozen shades, and the like. Eventually, we run into Camilla, the same woman that resurrected Dracula at the beginning of the game. Upon yapping about how the world sucks, she drops the fact that she's been manipulating Hugh into giving into the edginess within. And now, she transforms and it's time for the boss fight. At this point, you all know the drill. With the boomerang, I perform a Nintendo strategy guide and hammer away. She'll move left and right and shoot out a few bubbles with an occasional laser beam. After the twin zombie dragons, nothing really phases me anymore. I am the vampire killer. And with a few more hits, she's gone. A few parting words later, and we go to claim our final progression ability. Now we're able to perform numerous super jumps in the air. With it, we're off to the final dungeon of the game, the Observation Tower. Upon entering, we're greeted with a rendition of the famous Vampire Killer track, the first level used in the original Castlevania. Now I'm pumped. I've already talked about the music, but I still want to make note of how great it sounds. Fully hyped and ready, I start making my way up. Legions are slow and fairly easy to take down, though the Dark Armors are real crappy enemies. Their projectiles are much faster and difficult to avoid. Still, I've come so far in my Castlevania journey, nothing is stopping me anymore. At long last, I made it to the boss room where Hugh's been waiting for us. Now, he admits that he'll win and take us down to prove that he's better. With that, it was time to make him smell the utter copium that he's been spewing this entire game. He'll come at you with a sword and utilizes a variety of sub-weapons, except for the stopwatch. In a way, he's like you, except we have DSS and he doesn't, so you know what I'm about to do. After a quick beatdown, Hugh finally comes to his senses and apologizes. Having been jealous of Nathan for inheriting the vampire killer, he let his heart be taken over by darkness. With that done, we head past to retrieve the last key. Now we can unlock the door at the beginning of this game. Before that, I want to take a crack at the Battle Arena, a series of gauntlets where you take on incredibly tougher versions of regular enemies. If you win, you'll gain access to the Shining Armor, the best armor in the game. There's just one catch. You have no MP for this bout and no means of recovery. But I figured I was tough enough to take on anything. What's the worst that could happen? Alright, we're heading straight for Dracula. There are no more dungeons impeding our paths. Now we make our way towards the very room we started off in. With the key in hand, we unlock the door and proceed. Be sure to whip up this portion of the floor for a health upgrade. And now we finally approach the very last set of blue doors. It was time to save Morris and defeat Dracula. His usual method of attack is to teleport, then unleash a series of elemental typed bats. At this stage of the game, you're more than well enough equipped to handle him. Taking him down, Dracula soon retreats in order to regain his full strength. It's now up to us as we head in for the final fight. Dracula's second form's weak point is the eye in his chest when it's open. He'll cycle between 3 attacks: Poison Bubbles, Meteor Strike, and Laser Beam. Get him down to half, and then he'll start charging at you. Getting hit by these will deal tons of damage, so use your super jumps to get out of the way. Then he'll transform into a series of bats with an eyeball. With the power of Thunderbird, we finally get rid of Dracula once and for all. But if you know the series, he'll always be back, especially because this game isn't actually canon. Nathan joins up with the Baldwins as Hugh prepares to train through the basics yet again. It's all over now as the two end things with a totally incoming Omega Dap. And so ends Castlevania Circle of the Moon. While the beginning was tough, I managed to improve and eventually become powerful enough to handle Dracula himself. Circle of the Moon is a game I can recommend for anyone wanting to start their first Metroidvania, though I will warn you that it is a bit tougher than your usual game, but nowhere near as tough as classic Castlevania. You're welcome to play this game blind, but there isn't anything wrong with using a map. It's not like this game will provide one to you. What matters is the core gameplay, and I think it sticks the landing. Admittedly, I was a bit worried during my playthrough, but I'm glad I stuck through to the end. The next time I tackle another Castlevania game, it'll be Harmony of Dissonance, the second one in the GBA trilogy. That, however, will be for another time. Thank you again for sticking with me to this point. Be sure to stick around cause I'm always working on a new video. May your weekend be great, and your future just as amazing. Goodbye.